The story begins with a young boy named Ko-Guillaume, who rents a small room in a pirated movie rental shop alongside his older brother, Ko-Jun. The shop's owner, their uncle, is a kind man who allows Guillaume to watch all the movies except adult films. As Guillaume grows older, he realizes that frequently watching pirated films doesn't benefit the filmmakers, it harms them instead. As a film enthusiast, Guillaume dreams of contributing to the film industry by becoming an actor. By the time he turns 26, Guillaume starts attending auditions, but his performances are far from impressive. Just as he's about to leave one of these disappointing casting calls, he encounters a beautiful girl with a unique name, Mubi, which sounds like the word movie. Mubi is a stunning young woman who despises her name, wishing she could change the one her father gave her. She grew up without much affection from her father, who, though he loved her, was always too busy making films to be present in her life. This left Mubi craving attention and often acting out. When her father passed away, Mubi discovered his collection of films, which she considered terrible. Now, Mubi works in the film industry to prove to her late father how painful it is to dedicate one's life to making bad movies. Not long after, Guillaume becomes an actor, but only as an extra with insignificant roles. He often ends up bothering the other actors on set. Despite his lack of meaningful roles, Guillaume frequently crosses paths with Mubi during filming. To him, Mubi is like a new movie he's discovered, captivating and unforgettable. While others might not notice her, Guillaume, for some reason, Mubi intrigues Guillaume, though he doesn't realize that she's aware of his interest in her. Mubi finds his constant attempts to approach her and ask nonsensical questions annoying and uncomfortable. Guillaume is the type who gets along with everyone. This is precisely what Mubi dislikes about him. She finds him disruptive to her desire for a peaceful life and makes this clear to him. She doesn't want him near her or even talking to her, but Guillaume only finds her more enchanting. He mistakenly believes she feels the same way, imagining their story as a melodramatic film. Determined, Guillaume continues to pursue her, convinced they're destined to be together. This belief is reinforced when they coincidentally meet at a friend's wedding, where Guillaume is the host and Mubi is filming the event. To them, it feels like fate, appointment, and eventually falls asleep. When Mubi wakes up, one day, the film crew travels to a shooting location by bus. At first, Mubi assumes Guillaume will sit with her, but when he chooses to sit with someone else, she feels a pang of disappointment. They've arrived, and she discovers that Guillaume has been taking photos of her while she slept, teasing her about it. After the shoot, by sheer coincidence, both Guillaume and Mubi miss the bus back. Forced to wait for the next one, they sit together and begin to get to know each other. At that moment, Guillaume asks if Mubi is always this peculiar. She doesn't answer directly, but instead questions whether Guillaume is always pretending to be cheerful. Hearing this, Guillaume realizes that the girl he's infatuated with is sharp-tongued and quick-witted. He then asks her, as an assistant director, if she wants to make a film someday and what kind of film it would be. Mubi replies that she wants to create a truly remarkable melodrama. Guillaume is surprised to learn they share the same with certainty, saying he loves movies or films so much that he can't imagine doing anything else. His words seem to hint at his growing feelings for Mubi, as if he's subtly confessing his affection through his love for the art they both cherish. Shortly after, the bus they had been waiting for finally arrived. During the ride, Mubi fell asleep and had a dream about her father, which startled her awake, tears streaming down her face. In her daze, she accidentally grabbed Guillaume's hand. Embarrassed, Mubi quickly apologized to stay silent. Not long after, the film production wrapped up, and it was time for the farewell dinner. As usual, Mubi avoided the crowd and slipped away alone. Guillaume, noticing her absence, followed her. Seizing the moment, he asked why she always kept her distance from others. Mubi replied that people always leave eventually, and she didn't want to be left alone again. She added that someone like Guillaume, who always pretended to be cheerful, would probably be the first to walk away. This makes Guillaume even more sure of his feelings for her. He approaches and asks if Mubi will like him if he tells her a secret. However, Mubi didn't answer with words. Instead, she took his hand and kissed him. It was revealed that Mubi found herself drawn to Guillaume. Ever since she was a child, she had always felt pity for things that seemed sad or abandoned. She would try to care for them, like the stray puppy she brought home or the neighborhood boy who was bullied, whom she treated like a younger brother. But everything she cared for eventually disappeared: her dog, her neighbor, and now her father. Then she met Guillaume, a man who was always seeking attention, acting strangely, and pretending to be cheerful. For some reason, she was intrigued by him. However, just as they shared that kiss and Mubi began to open her heart, Guillaume suddenly vanished. Rather than dwell on it, Mubi decided to forget him and threw herself into her work, determined to make her film. She resolved to think of Guillaume as gone, just like everyone else. The scene then reveals the reason for Guillaume's disappearance is because his older brother, June, had a serious accident and was rushed to the hospital. For weeks, June lay in a hospital bed, and Guillaume was the only one by his side. He stayed with June through rehabilitation, never leaving the hospital. As for work, Guillaume transitioned to becoming a film critic, running a small blog where he reviewed current movies. Occasionally, he took on part-time construction jobs. He did whatever it took to support June, and before he knew it, 5 years had passed. One day, Guillaume attended the premiere of a newly released film. As a film critic, he was invited to the screening, which happened to be directed by Mubi. Initially, Guillaume only planned to watch the film, but seeing Mubi there reignited his desire to be part of her life. Guillaume asked if this was truly a melodrama, pointing out how pessimistic and bleak the story was. For some reason, Mubi felt irritated by his words. They lingered in her mind, unsettling her. Why had Guillaume, whom she thought was gone for good, suddenly reappeared in her life? Meanwhile, June had grown curious about Guillaume's life over the years. His younger brother had done nothing but care for him and work. Guillaume never talked about his own life anymore, though June remembered him once mentioning someone he liked. When asked, Guillaume simply said he was fine and that he'd been too young back then. Not long after, as a film critic, Guillaume was invited to the premiere of a film directed by a senior director. He arrived with Song Na, a director who had once hired him, and from a distance, he spotted Mubi. When Mubi caught sight of Guillaume's face, she felt a mix of concern and relief. He looked as though he had just returned from a long journey, his face etched with exhaustion that was hard to put into words. Guillaume wanted to approach her and ask how she had been, but before he could, Mubi had to leave and head into the studio. The film was about to start. After the screening, Mubi left early to avoid Guillaume. But as she searched for her car keys, she realized they were missing. Just then, she was startled to see Guillaume running toward her. At first, she thought he was following her, but it turned out he was returning her lost car keys. At that moment, Guillaume handed them over without explanation, prompting Mubi to ask how long he had been a film critic and whether he had attended her premiere just to review her film. Guillaume simply replied that he had wanted to see her first film. Mubi pressed further, asking if he had been sick or even imprisoned for some crime. Guillaume remained silent, which only frustrated her. She declared that from now on, they were enemies. After all, directors and film critics were natural adversaries. She also made it clear that she didn't want to see him again. Sometime later, Mubi's mother informed her that the house across the street had been sold. It once belonged to the boy Mubi had considered a younger brother, the one who was often bullied. The new owners had made some renovations to accommodate a wheelchair for one of the residents. When Mubi went to greet the new neighbors, she was shocked to find Guillaume and his brother, June, living there. At first, she thought Guillaume had followed her yet again, even going so far as to move in next door. However, it turned out that June had chosen the house, and fate had brought them together once more, this time as neighbors and enemies. Perhaps they were meant to grow closer after all. Living next to Guillaume filled Mubi's days with a mix of irritation and unease. Her frustration grew when she noticed that Guillaume had visited all the neighbors to hand out rice cakes, except her. To Mubi, his behavior became even more annoying now that he was no longer bothering her. Meanwhile, Guillaume was simply trying his best to respect her wishes, as she had explicitly told him not to appear in front of her again. He even asked June why he had chosen this house, as Guillaume needed a reason to face Mubi. But the more he tried to avoid her, the more their paths seemed to cross. Over time, Guillaume began to see sides of Mubi he had never noticed before. There were layers to her personality that surprised him. One day, a man arrived at Mubi's house and called her big sister. Guillaume realized how much he had missed in her life. The man was Jong-Hu, Mubi's childhood neighbor who had moved to America and lost contact with her. After catching up, Jong-Hu crossed the street to Guillaume's house, noticing him peeking toward Mubi's place. He asked if Guillaume knew the beautiful woman across the street, but Guillaume denied it. Zhang then inquired if a toy box of his had been left behind when Guillaume moved in. Unexpectedly, Guillaume teased him, leaving Zhang convinced that his new neighbor was a strange man. That evening, Guillaume and June hosted a housewarming party, inviting their friends. During the gathering, Guillaume confided in a friend about reconnecting with Mubi, the girl he had once been infatuated with. His friend grew annoyed with Guillaume's indecisiveness, telling him that if he no longer had feelings for Mubi, he should stop paying attention to her. But if he still liked her, he should apologize for leaving her behind, as the one who is left behind often suffers more. After the party ended, Guillaume asked June why he had chosen this house. The reason, it turned out, was simple. June loved the large white wall in their yard. He remembered Guillaume once saying he wanted a house with a big white wall so they could watch movies together. So, June had bought this house for Guillaume's sake. Hearing this, Guillaume felt a mix of frustration and guilt. Once again, his brother had put him first, even though Guillaume wished June would do something for himself for once. One night, Guillaume noticed Mubi returning home drunk. Worried, he followed her to make sure she got home safely. However, Mubi, feeling someone was trailing her, called the police. When the officers arrived, Guillaume tried to explain that he knew her, but as a new resident, the police weren't convinced. Fortunately, Mubi sobered up enough to vouch for him. On their way back, Mubi confronted Guillaume, asking why he hadn't apologized for disappearing on her. She told him that he should have apologized long ago, or everything was just a joke to him. In response, Guillaume finally apologized sincerely, and Mubi, without another word, went inside her house. The next day, Guillaume visited the offices of several film directors for interviews as part of his work as a film critic. After stopping by Songa's office, he also visited Mubi's. As a result, Mubi was surprised. They had parted ways at the bus station earlier that morning. Yet here they were, meeting again in her office. After asking a few standard questions about her film, Guillaume ventured off topic, asking why her name was Mubi. He pointed out how it sounded like movie and wondered if it was because she loved films. Mubi replied that she hated films. She hated how people glorified them, treating them as something worthy of obsession. She became a director to prove to her father, who had given her the name, that she could make films without romanticizing them. For her, it was just a job. Feeling the interview had gone on long enough, Mubi tried to end it. But Guillaume surprised her by asking her to watch a movie with him. He said he wanted to learn how to apologize properly and thought this might be a good way to start. Mubi appreciated the gesture, but declined. That evening, Guillaume waited for Mubi to return home from work. Once she was inside, he set up a projector to watch a movie on the large white wall in his yard. Mubi, noticing the strange light outside, stepped out and realized what Guillaume had meant earlier by inviting her to watch a film together. Guillaume was the kind of person who lived life at his own pace. He believed that everyone's life had its own balance. When misfortune struck, good things were bound to follow. Earlier that day, Guillaume's car had broken down. Instead of getting upset, Guillaume saw it as an opportunity to relax and enjoy his favorite snack, boiled corn. Later, as he drove home, a heavy rain started and his windshield wipers stopped working. Forced to pull over and fix them himself, Guillaume remained optimistic. True to his belief, something good did happen. Mubi appeared, holding an umbrella and helping him fix the wipers. To Guillaume, she was the good thing that followed his streak of bad luck. Not long after, Guillaume was approached by an agency offering to make him a famous critic. They promised to elevate his career beyond his blog, giving him opportunities to appear in magazines, on TV, YouTube, and radio. Though Guillaume was content with his current achievements, the lucrative offer was hard to refuse. Soon, he became a well-known film critic, appearing everywhere. One day, Guillaume wrote a scathing review of a film directed by Mubi's uncle, Yang Sik. The critique was so harsh that the film flopped, losing its audience. Shortly after, news broke that Yang Sik had attempted to do the unthinkable by overdosing on sleeping pills. Thankfully, his family rushed him to the hospital, and he survived. The incident left Guillaume deeply unsettled, prompting him to visit Yang Sik at the hospital. Unaware that reporters were swarming the hospital for the story, Guillaume found himself surrounded. They bombarded him with questions that cornered him. Despite this, Guillaume stayed silent, listening to their questions without responding. Moments later, Yang Sik's daughter arrived and told everyone, especially Guillaume, to leave immediately because her father needed rest. Afterward, Songa invited Guillaume out for a drink, having heard about the trouble he was facing. Mubi was also there. As Songa tried to comfort Guillaume, a friend suddenly arrived and asked Songa to step outside for a smoke, leaving Guillaume and Mubi alone. At that moment, Mubi asked if Guillaume was okay, but before he could respond, another director stormed in, furious at Guillaume for having criticized his film in the past. The director lashed out, saying that if Yang Sik had died from his doing the unthinkable attempt, it would have been entirely Guillaume's fault. Mubi quickly intervened, pulling Guillaume out of the situation. Outside, Mubi told Guillaume not to let the director's words bother him. Instead of feeling relieved that Mubi had defended him, Guillaume shrugged it off, saying he wasn't worried. He argued that Yang Sik's film deserved criticism and that not every film was meant to succeed. Besides, none of this was his fault. Mubi retorted that Guillaume lacked empathy. This wasn't about the film or whose fault it was about someone being hurt. She understood that people were looking for a scapegoat, and Guillaume had become a target. Despite this, Guillaume accused Mubi of being just like the others, blaming him too. Mubi fell silent, unable to respond. Before leaving, she told Guillaume that she and Songa had only wanted to comfort him because they were worried. But Guillaume's indifference made it seem like he didn't care about anyone's feelings but his own. This, she said, was why she couldn't forgive him and why her dislike for him only grew, because he was selfish and oblivious to the people around him. Later, Mubi visited Yang Sik, her uncle, in a hospital. Fortunately, he was recovering well and was no longer in critical condition. Mubi asked him what had really happened. Yang Sik explained that he hadn't tried to do the unthinkable. The media had twisted the story. Recently, he had been struggling with insomnia and, after drinking heavily, accidentally took too many sleeping pills. Relieved to hear the truth, Mubi told her uncle to rest and left the room. As she walked out, Yang Sik mentioned that a film critic had been lingering around, bothering him. Mubi realized he was talking about Guillaume, who was sitting outside in the hospital hallway. She approached him and asked what he was doing there. Guillaume simply said he was waiting for something good to happen, and that something good turned out to be seeing her. In Mubi's mind, seeing Guillaume like this reopened old wounds. She had always been too easily moved by things that seemed sad or pitiful, like Guillaume. In the end, she offered to take him home. On the way, Guillaume confessed that he wanted to fall for her again. He wondered why Mubi, who had always been so cold, had once liked him enough to kiss him first. It was because of the small gestures of attention Guillaume had shown her, which had slowly won her over. But this time, when Guillaume declared his feelings, Mubi rejected him outright. She even kicked his leg to make sure he understood she wasn't interested in repeating the past. The next morning, Guillaume stared intently at Mubi's house, so much so that June grew suspicious. June joked that Guillaume might be planning to rob their neighbor's house. In a way, Guillaume was after something from that house, the beautiful woman who lived there. June remarked that Mubi was a good person, surprising Guillaume, who hadn't realized June knew her. June was equally surprised to learn that the girl Guillaume had once liked was Mubi. Sometime later, Songa invited Guillaume to a gathering with other directors. There, Guillaume ran into the director who had berated him earlier. Guillaume tried to explain that his intentions as a critic were good. He wasn't trying to tear anyone down, but to offer constructive feedback to improve the film industry. Moments later, the director asked why Guillaume had become a film critic. Guillaume replied simply, because he loved films. The director smiled, saying he loved films too, which was why he had become a director. But now, he was considering quitting because he feared he was starting to hate films. Guillaume's reviews had made him realize he might not be cut out for this field, and he wanted to stop before it was too late. The night ended with everyone drinking heavily. The next thing Guillaume knew, he woke up in his own room, clutching someone's cardigan. He had no memory of how he got there or what had happened the night before. The scene shifts to show that before Guillaume returned home, June had struggled when his walking stick got stuck. Fortunately, Mubi was there to help. June thanked her, as Mubi had always been kind to him. When they first moved in, she had also helped him after he was hit by a motorcycle. Mubi was truly a good-hearted woman. She remarked that June spoke so politely and gently, unlike Guillaume. Hearing this, June laughed, saying that while Guillaume was rough around the edges, he was also thoughtful and kind. However, recalling Guillaume's behavior the previous night, June felt embarrassed in front of Mubi. Guillaume, drunk, had loudly shouted her name, begging her not to block his number. He had even tugged at her cardigan until it ended up in his hands. Not long after, Mubi came to retrieve her cardigan. She warned Guillaume that if he caused another drunken scene like last night, she wouldn't hesitate to call the police. Instead of feeling remorseful, Guillaume took it as a sign that Mubi cared about him, even though she could have called the police already. June was baffled by Guillaume's reasoning, wondering if his brother was still drunk. Later, inside the house, Mubi's mother informed her that one of her father's old friends had called, asking her to organize a community movie night, something her father used to do. Meanwhile, Guillaume learned about this from Jong-hoo, who visited him at home. As Mubi prepared for the event, she was surprised to see Guillaume helping out as part of the staff. The movie night was a tradition her father had started when Mubi was a child. Every summer, he would collaborate with filmmakers to set up an outdoor screening for the neighborhood, free of charge. As the evening approached, everyone gathered to watch the film. Mubi was annoyed to see Jong-hoo getting along with Guillaume, and they even invited her to join them. At the same time, Mubi's mother noticed how attentive Guillaume was to her daughter, sensing there might be something between them. As the night deepened, Mubi's mother, Jong-hoo, and June left early, leaving Mubi and Guillaume alone. At that moment, Mubi observed how engrossed Guillaume was in the film. She asked why he was so captivated, even though he had seen it before. Guillaume replied that each viewing felt different, the second, third, or even 10th time. It was because he loved movies, a word that sounded so much like her name, Mubi. Hearing this, Mubi found herself drawn in, but it scared her. She remembered how her father had introduced her to films, his enthusiasm shining through. Yet, she realized her father hadn't loved her as much as he loved films. He had always been too busy, leaving her behind. Mubi feared that whenever she started to care for something, it would inevitably leave her. Unable to bear Guillaume's confession and her own emotions, she decided to leave. In response, Guillaume grabbed her hand, but Mubi brushed him off. Acting quickly, Guillaume chased after her, urging her to stop running away. However, Mubi told him to stop playing games. Not giving up, Guillaume insisted he wasn't. His feelings for her were genuine. This immediately makes Mubi doubt him, since he once made her heart flutter and gave her hope, only to disappear without a word. Guillaume interrupted her, asking if that meant she had feelings for him too. He pointed out that she had been the one to kiss him first to initiate their connection. Why was she denying it now? Despite her pulling away, Guillaume admitted his feelings hadn't changed. He still loved her. He hugged her tightly, declaring that this time, he would be the one to start their relationship. Guillaume had a habit of sudden, dramatic gestures, just like in the melodramatic films he adored. The next day, Mubi was still confused about what had happened the previous night. Her mother told her that if she truly liked Guillaume, their neighbor, she should accept her feelings. After all, Guillaume was a good man. Her mother didn't want Mubi to wait too long and regret it if Guillaume eventually gave up and left. Meanwhile, Guillaume went to Songa's office, where he learned that one of